So hey guys, and welcome to our second session on marketing management. So in the first session previously we learned about basics of marketing, what exactly marketing is and how it is changing in the digital age right now and so on. We also saw the basic terminologies such as customer needs, wants, demands, and how companies address them in individual ways. So now in this session, we're going to look at how a company can begin with their marketing strategy, how a company can build or create their own marketing strategy. So to start with, the first thing is every company needs a mission. Now, what I mean by this is every company needs a statement or a set of statements which prove what the company is doing, which in short specify to either the customers, the employees, or the stakeholders, whoever that may be, exactly what the company stands for, what the company wants to do, and what is the company doing in terms of business from a customer's perspective or in customer's value. So to understand this clearly, like why do we need a mission and why does it need to be market oriented? To understand the idea of this, let's take a simple example. So let's take an example where we have, let's say, a mobile phone company. There is, let's say, Apple. So the mission statement of Apple organization should state what they are doing, should state what they are making happen for the customers or what they're making happen in their own company to provide an idea, to provide a base idea of their company's entire business. So, in other words, a mission statement provides a purpose of the company, what exactly the company is aiming to do, and what that company accomplishes as well. So you guys can find a lot of such mission statements in the website listed here. There is mission-statement.com. But we need to know that every mission statement of a company cannot be the same and it cannot be in similar terms as well. So what happens is several companies' mission statements are product oriented, whereas several other companies' mission statements are market oriented. So the ones which are product oriented specifically talk about the product that their company is making. And the ones which are market oriented specify the organization's purpose purely from a customer's value point. So most often than not, companies look for market oriented mission statement which state the purpose of the organization in such a way that customer feels like yes, this organization is looking to give us, that is the customers, some sort of value. So that is the entire goal of mission statement in this way. To take an example, if there's an organization which is, let's say, making furniture, the mission statement of the organization cannot just be we make furniture. It cannot just be we sell furniture. This, in simple words, cannot be their mission statement. It has to be something unique, which when a customer looks at it, should give a feeling of value to the customer. So most of the companies make sure that their mission provides sort of an experience of the company in short as well. So we'll look at a few examples of such companies up now. Let's take a look at this. So let's look at these in detail. Let's say we'll start with Google. So I can just say Google is just a search engine. The mission of it is just to search something and provide whatever info it is about what I'm searching. But their mission statement is written in such a way that it provides a purpose for whatever they're doing from their own point of view, from stakeholders' point of view, and as stakeholders are also customers, from customers' point of view as well. So their particular mission statement reads as to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Now, this purpose, when an employee reads it, may provide him or her with a motivation to work towards the same. It may provide the top level management of the company to work towards this. It will also provide customers an information or customers an idea of what exactly the company is doing for this customer, or in other words, what is the customer value that they're bringing up. Likewise, Facebook can just be said as we are a website where you guys can text or share videos and so on. But instead, they provide their purpose in such a way that it encompasses an experience. That is, stating that its mission is to give people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. So they're stating that they're helping build communities online, and they're reducing the world to a smaller space through internet by making it very easy for any person to communicate. So this sort of mission statements from organizations which are market oriented, or in other words which are customer oriented, they help them out a lot. So likewise, let's look at Amazon.com. It could just be something like, we sell any product that you want. We just get products from other let's say sellers, and we sell it in our platform. They could just state something like that. But instead, they also stated to in a way to state that their mission is to be Earth's most customer centric company. Emphasis on most customer centric company. That is stating that they're looking to, in other serve the customer as best as possible. That is, the customer is the center of their or core of their entire organization. And they continued with the second statement, that is to build a place where people can come to find and discover anything they might want to buy online. So they are also stating that our website, you can buy anything you want, but in a way that that purpose gives customers an experience where they can find and discover anything. So this essentially comes down to making it an experience more than anything nowadays. So Uber can just say that we give you cabs wherever and whenever. Instead of that, they make it something like, our transportation is as reliable as running water, everywhere for everyone. Now, running water is kind of short, that's the secondary term. But their entire mission statement is in such a way that they are stating that it's ubiquitous. In other words, Uber's services are available everywhere effortlessly, just by the click of a button or something like that. So like this, you guys can look at Airbnb and Twitter's mission statements as well. So Airbnb can just state that their mission statement as like, we rent homes, but that doesn't seem like a purpose. That doesn't seem like an experience. So to create it as an experience, Airbnb stated as, our mission statement is to help create a world where you can belong anywhere and where people can live in a place instead of just traveling to it. So they're stating that their mission statement is providing a customer a value in such a way that the customer can just go out, get a place in Airbnb where they can feel like, yes, they would love to live in that place. So that's the kind of mission statement that they are doing. So just as examples, the previous mission statements that we just provided to you guys, these are more of products. So instead of products, there are a lot of companies which are more service oriented than product oriented, that they look at providing more service than just the product. They also provide products, of course, but they provide a service more than that. Something like, let's take an example of Verizon. Verizon is a mobile network coverage organization, just like we have Reliance and everything in India. Verizon is there in various companies in Europe and United States as well. So their mission is not just to say like, we give mobile signals or something like that. Their entire mission statement is like, our mission is to inspire tomorrow's creators to use technologies to build brighter futures for themselves, their families, and the world. So it's much more wider than just saying we give network coverage. So just like that, you guys can see Nike as well, which could just say we sell shoes or we provide good quality shoes. But instead, their mission statement is saying, we aim to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. So the way they're stating it, they're providing an experience to every athlete to be inspired and feel really good and innovative whenever they wear these companies' shoes. So their advertisements also reflect the same mission statement. So if you guys would know, every advertisement of any of these organizations reflect their mission statement. If you guys see these two, for example, I'm gonna just give Coca-Cola and Nike as examples for this. When it comes to Nike, all their advertisements are about motivation. All their advertisements are about getting inspired, getting innovated. So that stands with their mission statement. And if you guys look at Coca-Cola, for example, Their mission statement is to refresh the world in mind, body, and spirit. Remember, to refresh and to inspire moments of optimism and happiness through our brands and actions. Remember, refresh and happiness to create value and make a difference. Yes. So whenever you look at advertisements of Coca-Cola as well, you guys can see that their entire ads focus on whenever a person drinks Coca-Cola through a bottle or something like that, they get refreshed, they get good feels, they get happiness, in other words. So that is reflecting their entire mission statement. So mission statement is pretty much the core principle on which their entire marketing works. The entire marketing of any organization works based on this. I'm just going to take a couple of more examples for you guys to go through. Um, let's take an example of Apple. The entire mission statement of Apple is to challenge the status quo, to think differently. And every marketing strategy of theirs is to say that they think and they do differently. That's why their product is unique. Also, you guys can look at something like Harley Davidson, whose advertisements are always where there's a person driving or riding a Harley Davidson, and um, he's feeling a sense of freedom while riding it. And that's what it states, to fulfill dreams of personal, all American freedom. So all organizations have their mission statements based on which their entire marketing strategy revolves. So the first thing for any organization, if it's an organization that we have, is to create our own mission statement. I've already provided the case study of Starbucks to you guys. You guys can look at the bottom rightmost mission statement available here. That is, Starbucks has its own mission statement as to inspire and nurture human spirit, one person and one cup at a time. It's not just to sell coffee, it's to inspire and nurture the human spirit. So they're providing it as a big experience. So likewise, Disney provides it as to create happiness for people of all ages everywhere. So they're not just suggesting that only kids, they're stating all ages everywhere. So they have their mission statement to create happiness everywhere. So they want to globalize their company across the world. That's what they're saying. And they want to target, they don't want to segment to just one set of customers. Since they're stating it's for people of all ages, they want to target everyone. So just like this, you guys can look at Microsoft as well, to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. They're empowering every person and organization. They're looking to target everyone on the planet, globalizing everywhere as well. So there's a lot about a company that you can find out just by their simple mission statement. So this is how mission statements affect entire organization, its marketing, its product, the way they treat it, the way they treat their customers, everything is reflected based on this. So making sure that the mission statement is worded and it's created in a right way to provide the purpose of the organization in such a way that everybody knows this is what this company stands for. Because whenever you guys think about Disney, you guys think like, hey, it's a nice thing, it's happiness. Whenever someone thinks about Harley Davidson, they think about freedom. Whenever somebody thinks about Coca-Cola, they think about just happiness. Whenever somebody thinks about Apple, they think about innovative products. So this is how the company encompasses their missions into everything that they do, whether it's marketing, whether it's product, whether it's strategy, whether it's segmenting, targeting, whatever it could be. So this is just in short about how a company should start its mission statement, reflecting what their entire organization stands for, because this is going to be the base on which their entire marketing will run on. So continuing ahead with this, the mission of the organization, once created, will also influence the objectives and goals of the company. Now, we know that every company will state their own objectives and goals. Now, these objectives and goals are gonna be completely dependent on what the mission is. So, the objective is of an organization is to spread their products around the world, or is to create new products or create innovative products. Whatever their objectives and short-term and long-term goals of the company will be purely dependent on their mission, because their mission is what is the purpose of the entire organization currently and in the future. So some organizations keep changing their mission sometimes whenever they're looking to improve themselves, whenever they're looking to diversify and change their organization, and they feel like their mission no longer reflects their company's work. So this is also something that happens. It's not like once you create a mission, you have to stick to it. So the next thing we need to know about once we've defined our own mission and then objectives and goals is business portfolio. Business portfolio is something that tells everything about your product line, all the brands that you have in your organization. In short, let's say you have a huge company which has a lot of sub companies under you or a lot of products within your company. So your business portfolio is stating which are the products you have, which are the sub companies you have, what is the what is each product aiming to do, what is the brand of each product, what is the mission of each product, or what is the purpose of each product, what could be the pricing of it, what could be the segmentation marketing part of it. Everything is specified in business portfolio. But in short, business portfolio consists of which products or which businesses your company has. And each product that your company has is called an SBU. In other words, a strategic business unit. It's a small unit of your business with its own strategy, with its own idea, with its own mission, with its own marketing strategy. So, in this sense, whenever a company analyzes their own business portfolio, there are a few questions that come up within the company, preferably these three. If we have an organization, let's say our company is of mobile devices, the first portfolio analysis question that comes up is, should we be in this business? Are we having profit in this business? Are we having a customer reach in this business? If yes, then let's continue in it. Should we add a new business? Do we have good enough reach? Can we incorporate something new? We already have a mobile devices as our sub products, as our strategic business units. Can we add a smart watch, or can we expand our business to televisions? Can we expand to something else? That is the second question. And the third is, how can we win and hold a substantial share of the market? The important part is, once we are in any business, we are supposed to hold a major share of the market. If we don't hold a good share of the market, we are not selling our products, we are not marketing our products enough. There could be various reasons, but if there's not a substantial share, products won't be sold and the company would obviously go to a loss. So business portfolio analysis asks these three questions majorly, and with this, one of the easiest way to analyze this is using growth share market. So growth share market matrix looks something like this. There are four divisions. There is based on market growth rate and relative market share. So as long as your market growth is high, that means you're selling more. Your market growth rate can either be low or high according to this particular growth share matrix. So likewise, your relative market share, that means how much of market share is yours. That means how much percentage of customers are looking to buy only your product, can either be high or low. Based on these, your business unit or your product can be into one of these four categories. So here's how we talk about these categories. These categories could be considered as a pet, the bottom right part, a cash cow, bottom left part, an unknown or a question mark, top right part, or a star, top left part. And here's how or what they mean. So to understand this, before we go on to understand what they mean, let's take an example of strategic business units of an organization. Let's look at P&G. P&G is a huge company which has of products or lots of strategic business units under their own business. So you can call this as a mini business portfolio. They have a lot of strategic business units in with customer segment as babies, for skin and personal care, for oral hygiene, for personal hygiene, whatever it could be. So these are all products of P&G. That means they are all strategic business units of P&G. And each strategic business unit will belong to one of these four categories. Now here's how it happens. So cash cow, the one that you guys saw in the bottom left part, is having low market growth rate but high market share. That means it's not growing a lot. It's not earning more and more, but it has a lot of customer base. So in other words, since it has a huge customer base, but it's not improving, companies should use these products as much as possible to earn as much as they can from this before it loses its customer base, and use that money to invest in something else. Or they can also look into increasing its growth, that is in terms of market as well. So this can also, it can go either way. And the one that we saw in the top left part, that is a star, is the one which has high market growth and high share. That means this is where customers love the product and they use it a lot. So it states that companies should invest a lot in these star product or star business units, star strategic business units, because they have huge future potential and they can improve more and more. So the other one that we have is the question mark, that is, it has low market share. It does not have a lot of customers, but it has a high market growth rate. So in this case, which means that these strategic business units or these products require a lot of cash to increase the market growth rate. It requires a lot of investment. So the company should make a decision on whether this investment is going to be worth it. Should we invest so much in this particular strategic business unit and improve it to a star, or should we discard it and phase it out to become a pet? And the last one that we have is pets, in other words, low share and low growth. So whenever a strategic business unit of an organization does not have enough market share and it does not have enough growth as well, those companies should liquidate, or in other words, convert that entire strategic business unit into money, so that that money can be invested or divested into some other investments. So these are the four strategic business unit categories that we have from our growth share matrix. In other words, we also call it as Boston Consulting Group approach as well. But this cannot be always performed because it's expensive, it's time consuming, mainly because it's very difficult to measure growth and market share of each of your strategic business unit. It's very difficult to measure the growth compared to all the other competitors, and it's very difficult to measure the market share as well compared to all the other competitors. So it's kind of a difficult task to work on. So I'm just taking an example here, that is the same growth matrix. In this case, you guys see the top left corner, the top left quadrant as stars. That is, let's say we have our own retail organization. In our retail organization, fashion stores and jute stores are selling a lot. In that case, they're our stars. So those are our star business strategic or strategic business units. So we need to invest more in those because they're earning well for us and we need to improve them. Then there is a question mark part, that is the top right quadrant, which is convenience store. So a lot of people do not visit convenience stores. So our market share is less, but it still has a good market growth. So it's up to us to invest in it and make it move to a star, or not invest in it and phase it out to pets, whereas using that money to invest in something else. Then in the bottom left quadrant, we have something called supermarkets, which is a cash cow. That means we have a large market share. That means a lot of people come towards supermarkets, but the problem is it doesn't have enough growth rate. So it's again, we need to obtain as much money from it as possible and invest in something else, or we need to invest in it to increase its growth rate as well. So the growth rate increment could be by increasing the size of the supermarket, or by marketing it more, or it could be any other reasons, or because there may be less inventory, we need to invest a lot more in it. There's less parking space, or whatever it could be. Then the last one, let's say department stores, there's not enough market share, there's not enough market growth as well. So we can end up phasing it out and using the money of that in something else, which could become a star or which could already be a star. So this is just one example that we can take. So one more example is, let's say there's one organization which has all these products. So in all these products, that you guys know that all the products listed here, or all the strategic business units listed in this image, are completely of an organization called Unilever. So Unilever is selling a lot of Lipton iced tea and Dove shampoo, soaps, and everything. So since they're selling that a lot, and it also has a huge growth, market growth, we can state that it's a star of their company. So they can invest more in it, they can do more research, they can improve their products in it. And likewise, there's a high market share, but there's not enough market growth for something like Marmite and Hellmann's. So they can either invest in it or they can use as much as possible from it and phase it out. And then there's something with high market growth, but it doesn't have market share. There is T2 and OMO. So they can invest a lot of money in it to make it to a star, or they can phase it out as well. And finally, there are pets, that is Rago and Slim Fast, which they can directly phase it out and invest that money into stars. So the entire purpose of the any organization is to make as many strategic business units in their company stars or to phase them out. So if they are in cash cow or question mark, in other words, problem child, they can make a decision on either to phase it out or to convert it into a star. Another example I'm going to take up for this is, let's say, Samsung. Samsung sells a lot of smartphones and television, so you can say they are their stars. Samsung also sells their refrigerator and washing machines and everything. But although they sell it, which means it has a lot of customer base, it does not have enough market growth in it. Unlike smartphones, which can grow year by year, a new model can come up year by year. For a washing machine and let's say a refrigerator, that's not the case. People buy smartphones every 2 to 3 years, but people may not be willing to buy a washing machine or let's say a refrigerator every 2 to 3 years. So it does not have enough market growth. So they can either try to get a market growth of it or sell it as much as possible until they phase it out. And the other thing is a problem child or a question mark, that is printers. Samsung has printers which may or may not sell much because it has a good growth rate. They keep changing, they keep improving, but a lot of customers are not buying it. So they can change it so that customers can buy it or they can phase it out. And another pet part of it is a pet project. A small project of theirs is smartwatches. Smartwatches may just improve and increase. So they may use that pet project and invest a lot in it, or they may phase it out as well, given the thinking that it may not be important to the future. That is purely a company dependent perspective. But we may look at it and be like, hey, smartwatches are going to be the future. So I think it's going to be a good investment or something like that. So these are some factors that may be considered. So this helps us analyze whether our strategic business units in our organization should be invested on or should not be invested on, depending on what is the market growth rate and what is the relative market share of these products or strategic business units. So once we have realized what the mission of our organization is, and we have set our goals and objectives to fit that mission, and we have already seen what are the strategic business units that we need to invest in, then the next thing to figure out is how to grow these strategic business units, or how to improve them, or how to diminish or downsize them. So most often we may need to have a strategic way, or we may need to have a really good plan or strategy to make sure that the goals and capabilities of our product are there in sync with a changing market. Let's say, for example, you have the example of smartwatch that we just discussed a few minutes ago. So that smartwatch looks like a promising growth area, even though it's a pet project. So it may be improved upon, it may be worked upon. So there needs to be a strategy to build it and provide it to the market so that it becomes a star. If the company feels like it's not possible, then the company needs a strategy to downsize it as well. So this is where strategies for growth and downsizing become very important. So to understand this, let's take this example where, let's say, we have certain products, and these products, as a company is looking to improve or increase the strategic business units or reduce them or whatever the case could be, a company can make sure that they are having one strategic business unit and using that same product by selling it a lot. It could be Lipton or Dove or that phone or that television of Samsung, whatever it could be. They are selling it well, so they continue to do it. They continue to sell the same product again and again so that they make a lot of money out of it. This is existing market and existing product. In other words, market penetration. The next thing is you have an existing market, but you want to give a new product to them. That, in other words, Samsung already has a phone. They want to create a new smartphone with multiple cameras or with better battery or whatever it could be. So they're developing their product and providing it to the existing market. They're improving on their product. They're investing in research in their product and improving it and providing it to the same market. This happens when you have a good market share. So you grow the product and you provide it to the same market so that the current market will look to buy that as well. I have a phone, it's got a good camera, but I look at another ad on television which says that same company is providing a new phone with a better camera which can take high quality images, and I want it, so I would take that as a product development, that is new product, and buy it. This is top right quadrant. So just like this, the bottom left quadrant that you guys have is market development. Market development is where you have a product already and you have this product, but you want to provide this product to a new market. Let's say, for example, Coca-Cola is currently an Indian company and they want to market it within Mexico, within USA or some other country. So in that case, it's the exact same product. It's an existing product, but they're trying to provide it to a new market. So this is where market development comes into picture. Or they're trying to market it to a different demographics. So all of these come up under market development. And the final way is new product and new market. So we already have an organization, we want to develop a new product, but we want to develop that new product to an entire new market. It could be entire new demographic, age wise or income wise, it could be anything, or an entire new demographic in terms of location as well. So this is where diversification comes into picture. So this is your basic product or market expansion grid. So when we look at this with an example, we can see this. Let's say, for instance, take an example of Coca-Cola. So we have an existing product that is Coca-Cola, and it's already having an existing market in a certain country. Let's say they target more on youth aged people and everything. So they're continuing to target, they're continuing to do the same product, they're continuing to sell it, it's got good revenue. So that is your marketing in existing product and existing market. That is, in other words, what we just discussed as market penetration. Now, when it comes to product development, they're looking to create a new product and sell it to the same market. So let's say people are loving Coca-Cola a lot, so they create new flavors of it. Could be Coca-Cola cherry, vanilla, chocolate, could be whatever it could be. So once they create a new product and sell it to the same market, they're into product development. This is the point that we saw in product development. That is, they're creating a new product and they're selling it to the same market. When it comes to existing product but new markets, they have the same product but they want to sell it to a different market. It could be a different market like let's say people who are not youth, people who are a little old in their 30s. So they want to change their product slightly to provide to their market. This is a combination of new product and new market. That is, they come up with something like Coca-Cola Diet or Coca-Cola Zero with zero sugar, so that they can also attract a different set of customers between 30 and 40 age. So this is new market as well as new product combination. Or they can sell it to a new country like Mexico or whatever it could be as the same product but into a new market. Or they can directly go on to a completely new product in a completely new market, something like Coca-Cola based t-shirts, so that even kids or old age people, whoever they are, they can buy and utilize those products. So this is one example of new products and new markets. So continuing with this, the other opposite part of this is downsizing. In other, so it could be something where your organization has a pet project and they want to phase it out. So when they want to phase out a pet project or something like that, you can have that company downsize the project or product by producing it less and selling out whatever you have in the current market, or completely shifting it out to a new product instead of the current product, completely shifting it out by changing it and marketing it as a new product. It could be many different ways. So that is where downsizing comes into picture. But we're not going to focus much on that. What I want to focus more on in our section right now is value chain analysis. Now, we've already seen this in our previous term within a subject as well, particularly within management information systems, managing information systems as well. But I just want to revisit the same concept. We already know this. Every organization which wants to produce and sell products has to go through these primary and support activities. So these are the primary activities that a company has. That is, in other words, a company must require these activities to sell any product. That means they must have inbound logistics or procurement of any raw materials. They must have some operations, manufacturing. They must sell it out, provide it out to shops. They must market it, and then they must provide service to the customers as well. So apart from these must or requirements, there can be support activities like they can have they of course need to develop their product and obtain better procurement methods and improve the infrastructure and so on. So in this case, the point that I want to make is a company is only as strong as its weakest value chain in this. In the value chain of all these parameters, a company is only as strong as its weakest link. Let's say out of all of these, a company does not have enough marketing. If the company does not have enough marketing and sales, their inbound logistics, operation, outbound logistics, and service does not matter much because they're not marketing their product at all. It's not marketed well at all. And other thing, if the company's operations is not good, in other words, their manufacturing is not good, their product is not of good quality at all, immaterial of how good their marketing and service is going to be, if the product is not good, people are not going to be willing to buy it. So in short, analysis of value chain must be conducted where a company's value chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So once you are able to find which is the weakest link in your own value chain, once you have analyzed that, you're supposed to figure out how to improve it. So this is one thing. So this is one thing that we need to calculate and analyze in our organization, no matter what it is. So the next thing that we need to know is something called a value delivery network. So a value delivery network is essentially a network of everything that's involved within the organization for selling. That is the entire company themselves, the supplier of raw materials, the distributors to retail shops, and the customers who are the end point. So the network of all of these together is essentially called a value delivery network. And one thing that we need to know very well about this is that every organization's customer value delivery network should be as good as possible. Let's say, for example, I'll just give this as an example. Let's say there's mobile phone company A or 1 and mobile phone company 2. Let's say the company 1 is providing the best mobile phones ever. Company 1 is providing really good mobile phones. Whereas company 2 is providing not the best mobile phones, but they're really good. They're not as good as company 1's, but they're still really good. So in this case, company 2's mobile phones, let's assume, has much better service than company 1. So because of this, customer value delivery network may be inclined more towards company 2 because even though the quality is not best, it's still really good, and on top of it, the service is also good. So all of these value delivery network components together impact a customer. So all of these are together important, whether it's supplier, whether it's operations, whether it's your customers, whether it's distribution, whether it's service, whatever it could be. So it all matters together a lot. So now that we understood this, the major marketing strategy of any organization should be driven by customer value. In other words, yeah, in short, every marketing strategy should be driven by a value for the customer. So in other words, if you're marketing something, it should be marketed as providing value to the customer, not just providing a product. So in short, a marketing strategy should focus on targeting some set of customers. You can't target everyone at every time. So you should target a segment of customers. So we need to learn how to segment our customers. And then we need to learn how to retain those customers by meeting whatever their needs are. This can be done by making sure that the quality is good of the product or the service is good, or we are in constant communication, could be anything. And a lot of metrics can be used to measure the customer satisfaction. That is, after a year, you can make a survey call or something like that. So the next thing is being customer driven in any marketing. In this sense, you're trying to state to the customer that, hey, I'm not selling the product just because I want to sell the product. I'm selling the product because I want to give a value to the customer. So once a company starts doing this, once a company starts providing a value to the customer will have a sense of loyalty towards the company. Let's say, for example, I go up to a coffee shop every day. I'm just giving a simple example to start with this now. I pay 5 rupees for that cup of coffee, and I get a cup of coffee. And it's this literally no customer value over here. I'm just paying, I'm just getting the cup of coffee, I'm having it, I'm moving out. That's it. Whereas in another shop, I'm paying, let's say, more than 5 rupees, maybe 10 or 15 rupees, but I'm getting the real good customer value over there. I have a space to sit, and the guy comes over and he provides the coffee by himself. He goes off, he asks if I need any sugar, he provides everything else. And if I ask anything further on, he's open to a provision of the same, and um, gives a feeling that yes, this customer has value and provides whatever is required. It could be something like, you guys may have seen examples of coffee day or something like that, where you guys have your own charging port, a place to sit, and a person comes over to serve, and all these instead of you just going over, getting a cup of coffee, drinking it, and coming over. So there could be a sense of customer value that is provided, which may create your loyalty towards that organization. So this is what is mainly needed in a marketing strategy to create customer value. So to create this, there are four certain divisions that we often look for. That is, first, to segment a customer base. So whatever customer base we are focusing on to, let's segment or reduce the total number of customers into the customers which we are focusing on to. Then let's target our product to them. Then let's differentiate our product from any other product. Then let's put a position of our product in a certain way that the customer feels like, yes, this is where this product lies. So let's look at what each of these factors are and how to do this. So segmenting is going to be based on a lot of factors. You may need to segment your customer based on any of these factors. It could be demographic. That means it could be based on their age, their gender, their income, their leisure timing, their work, or it could be anything. It could be whether they have kids or whatever it could be. It could be demographic. Or it could be psychographic. That means psychological influences of the person, their attitude, their interest, and all these things. Or it could be behavioral, or in other words, habits of that person. What does this person have a habit of purchasing and spending? Does this person have a habit of buying these certain kinds of products? Or it could be geographic, such as a city, a country, a climate, a weather. It could be any such thing. So segmenting customers can be based on all these things. Once an organization has segmented their customers, then they need to target such customers. Like for example, an advertisement of a kid's toy cannot come up in a news channel. It would obviously come up in a kids channel. So this is where you're targeting the demographics and putting up your marketing of that particular strategy or marketing of advertisement video, whatever it could be, to those demographics in a particular channel. So this is where segmenting comes into picture. So once you have segmented a particular customer base, the next step is to target. In other words, how are you going to market to these segments? We have only segmented them. How are we going to market it to them? So there could be any of these following strategies. It could be a broad targeting or a very narrow targeting. It could be something like, we have a customer base. To every customer, we're going to give the same advertisement no matter what. It could be a mass marketing, something like a lot of, let's say, clothing store, or let's say Nike does. Nike's mass marketing is towards everyone together. There's no segment in it. It's just saying that in their segment, they could have a male, female, or a little teenage, or athletes of 20 to 30 age, or whatever it could be. But they often give their marketing in a sense that it's marketed for everyone together as one advertisement. Or an organization could also create separate marketing strategies. This is where the organization targets different segments that they are into and provides different marketing strategies for those segments. Let's say, for example, for older age people that they are targeting, they may market the product to them separately. For younger age, they may market it in a completely different way. So a simple example for this is something that's called nutraceuticals, or in other words, things that we often buy to improve our health. So there could be something like, let's say, multivitamins. So these are often marketed as products or um, things which help a person in their young age to maintain their fitness really well. This can be marketed only to young age people. Whereas the same product can be marketed to older age people by stating that this product is going to help you recover some strength and not lose it all. So the same product can be marketed to different segments with different offers. This is differentiated. Or there could be one more way called niche or concentrated marketing, where an organization is marketing their product to a single segment and they're not marketing it to any other segment whatsoever. Let's say, for example, there's a sports bike. They're marketing it only for races. They're not marketing this sports bike to any other person except for races. So this could be something of concentrated marketing. Then there's something that goes more narrow than this, that is micro marketing, where marketing are based by dividing into specific stores, specific neighborhoods, or individual person gets a different marketing strategy or treatment. So followed by this, the next thing is to differentiate your product. Now, once you've figured out who are you marketing your product to and how are you marketing it, the next step is how are you differentiating your product that you're going to market from other products. So this could be based on the feature. You may have an extra feature, it may have better performance, it may be better in quality, it may have a nice, better style, or it may be lower price, it could be anything. So once you've marketed based on a particular differentiation strategy, the next thing is to position your marketing organization. That means you have to influence your customers' perception or perspective of your brand in relation to rival brands. Let's say if your brand are selling products for lesser price than other brands, you have to make it as our product is going to give you high quality for low price. Or your brand is giving for the lowest price but low quality so people can just buy it when they need it. You can specify that the position of your company is over there. Or if you're providing the highest quality for the highest price, you can position your company over on that side. So an example for this is something like cars. There could be sports cars which are of high quality, high price, which are very high price. Or there could be something of high quality but low price so that people can afford it. So the position of your company or your strategic business unit, not entirely company, your product can be strategically placed in one of these four positions. So once this is analyzed, we now have marketing mix. That is, how do we particularly market this with the four P's that we often talk about. So till now, let us just clarify that we saw that every organization should have a market-oriented mission. Followed by this, they have to set their goals and objectives to match this, and they should have their own business portfolio of what strategic business units that company particularly has, and which part of growth share matrix do they belong to, and should the company invest more in it or invest less in it. And once that is done, the organization should also look at whether to expand into different markets or different products, or continue with the same market penetration that they're going into, or downsize something. And then the company should also look at the factor that their value chain, that is, it's as strong as its weakest link, and they need to improve on that weak link. And then they need to work on their value delivery network analysis as well to make sure that there is no gaps in it. Followed by this, they have to make sure that their marketing strategy is always customer driven to provide a sense of loyalty and a sense of unique value provided to the customer so that we can get the loyalty from them. And to do this, we're going to start segmenting our customers, targeting those particular customers in a certain way by differentiating our product and positioning our organization in one of these four categories. Now, once done, our marketing mix is going to consist of these 4 P's. Now, in some cases, you may see 5, 6, 7 P's as well, but we're going to focus on these 4 in short. So our marketing mix should focus on these very well. That is, if we are selling a product, we're going to have to focus on the features of our product. What is going to be the quality? What is going to be the branding? Is the what is going to be the packaging? What are the services we're going to offer with it? And what is going to be the warranty? What is going to be the added service, value added service, or anything that could be provided with this product? So everything should be focused on when it comes to product. It's purely only about the product, how it looks, what it has, what is its quality, what is its durability, what is the branding of it, how is it going to be packed, how are we going to provide the servicing of it, everything. No, once the product is planned, then the next thing is pricing of it. How are we going to price it? We already have learned about pricing strategy well before in retail management. Whether we're going to do an initial markup, then a markdown, or whether we're going to price it very high or price it very low. And if we are pricing it in a certain way, what is going to be the exact price? Are we going to provide any discounts? Are we going to provide any payment terms, like they have to pay the whole thing together, or 50% now, 50% later, or whatever it could be? So these are all the pricing strategies that could be planned out. So followed by this, the next thing is place. How are you going to market it, or how are you going to send it? Which channels are you going to deliver it through? Where are you going to market it? And where are you going to place this product? Which shops are you going to place it in? How much inventory are you going to keep it in these places? How are you going to transport these products to certain retail shops? This is the next thing that needs to be figured out. Once this is done, the next thing is to promote it. That is, how you're going to advertise it, how you're going to handle public relations if there are any issues about the product. Are you going to do direct marketing or indirect marketing? How are you going to promote the sales, and so on? So these 4 P's we're going to focus on further in our sessions, but till market positioning is where I wanted to focus more on in our session as of now. So with this, I hope you are able to figure out how to plan the right strategy before implementing a marketing strategy, which we will focus on in detail in further sessions as well. So in this case, we are looking on how to create a really good marketing strategy, which is going to be customer driven and focuses on the right segments without compromising on anything, so that we can have a clear idea. So implementation of a good marketing strategy first requires a good organizational structure. That means a good marketing department, a good product department, a good channeling department, whatever it could be. And then it also requires a reward system where the marketing department or whatever it could be are rewarded for the unique ways of selling that they do. Followed by this, they have to implement the right strategies at the right time as well. So these are some things we're going to focus on further on in our sessions continuing as well. So with this, we are ending our session by stating that we can measure the return of investment in any marketing of any product by the following formula. That is, essentially, once we get or once we provide customer a value, then we need to gain a return of that value in monetary benefits as an organization. So these profits to be generated by investing in marketing is calculated by this formula, which we will look in detail further on as well. So this was the second session of marketing management, that is how to create a right marketing strategy within our organization. In our next session, we're going to look at how to analyze the marketing environment. So thank you guys.